I do have one more question for Dr. Garabrandt. What was the score of the Penn State-Michigan game?
That's me.
43-40 and 4 overtime.
It was bad. It was bad.
Well, I enjoyed it. Anyways, I'd just like to thank everybody for the opportunity to address everybody and hopefully give a little bit of insight on from a rural healthcare standpoint, what impacts we're seeing from the Marcellus Shale gas exploration. I've been at the hospital now since 1987. The hospital's been there a lot longer, back to 1904. And we serve residents of Susquehanna County, northern Wayne County, and the southern part of Broome County in New York. Just some brief history on the economic standpoint of Susquehanna, and there are some Susquehannans here today, and I'm the youngest, so they know the history a lot better than I do. But Susquehanna is an old railroad town, but its heyday from an economic standpoint was a long time ago. The borough was incorporated in the mid-1800s, 1843 if I remember correctly, and the Erie Railroad was the main player of the age. And it's hard to believe, but at one point, our little borough of Susquehanna Depot had an industry that employed over 1,000 people in one place, and that was the Erie Shops in downtown Susquehanna. Now compare that to the current population of Susquehanna Depot, which is about 1,600, and it's kind of difficult to fathom. But over time, the railroad sort of died off. Dairy farming, which was big in Susquehanna County, lost its ability to make a profit, and our dairy farms sort of faded away to some extent. And at the same time, going through the 80s and into the 90s, manufacturing jobs in neighboring cities of Binghamton, New York, and Scranton, Pennsylvania were kind of on their way out. So Susquehanna, from an economic standpoint, had seen a lot better days. Really, the only bright spot we had seen up until recently was the Pennsylvania bluestone industry in the quarries in and around Susquehanna County. So what's changed at this point? Look, with the gas exploration in the Marcellus Shale in Susquehanna County, we've seen a ton of change. It's only been the last handful of years, and like any type of growth, it comes with its growing pains. In the industry for us, pretty much started out on the western side of Susquehanna County, more over in Rex's neck of the woods. But now that the infrastructure is sort of expanding and the drilling is expanding eastward, we're starting to see more and more of an impact in our immediate area. So when I was talking to George Stark, I said, geez, George, you know, what can I talk about that would not bore everybody and put them to sleep? And he said, just tell your story. Tell the Barnes Casson story. You are BK. And I said, yeah, we are BK. He said, tell us what you're seeing, the good, the bad, the ugly. You know, what are you seeing in the community? Are you seeing more patients, any certain type of patients? Are there any mysterious ailments, and so on? So we'll take a real brief look at that. You know, what we're seeing, probably the biggest, most upfront in your face thing from a negative standpoint is the fact that there's a lot more traffic. That doesn't necessarily make a huge impact on our delivery of health care, but it's something we live with every day. But I think everybody's kind of getting used to it, and we're dealing with it. But what we are seeing is more people, and more of these people seem to have jobs, and it includes some of our lifelong local folks who have maybe switched jobs and are making some better money. We're seeing some landowners receiving lease monies and royalties, having the financial ability to contribute to the economies of our communities in a very positive way. We're seeing an influx of workers that have impacted the downtown area. Our downtown is busier. I had the opportunity to speak with the owner of our local grocery in Susquehanna by the name of Ron Dubas, and they most definitely are seeing an increase in business down there, which is nice. What's Barnes Casson seeing more specifically? Are we seeing more patients? The short answer is yes, absolutely. And without really violating any privacy or HIPAA laws, I'll try to expand on that just a little bit. When I found out I was doing this, I emailed the entire employment of Barnes Casson Hospital, which is about 300 people. And I said, you know, I want to know anything and everything about the interaction you've had with a gas company employee. You know, have they come here for service? And I was expecting a few phone calls because it's a small place. Those of you who know where Barnes is, it's a small place out in the country. I was pretty intimate with every case I thought. And then my phone started ringing. And each person that called me to tell about the interaction said, am I the only phone call you got today? I said, no, actually I've had like 8 in the last hour. You guys actually really read your emails, that's good. So when we're looking at it, he says, what are you seeing? What types of patients are we seeing, or what are we doing for them? And basically, we're seeing everything. We've seen some work-related injuries. We're seeing some illnesses, managing some chronic medical conditions such as diabetes, hypertension, heart disease. We're doing actually have done some cancer treatments on a few patients. These are all people from out of the area whose primary care providers were someplace else. But they needed a family doctor for when they're in the Susquehanna area, and we've sort of taken over that role for them. We're doing a bunch of CDL physicals because there seems to be a lot more truck drivers in the area, or a lot of more people who are now driving truck. We provide preventative care for those who want it, flu vaccines, immunizations. We've done an appendectomy, sutured some lacerations, fixed a dislocated shoulder, so on and so on. My point of all that is we're doing for these people what we do for everybody else, all the rest of our patients, no matter who they are. They need the same things that you all need and that I need. And we are seeing those patients, and we're providing that for them. I think my favorite one is the mysterious ailments. Very briefly, no, I can't provide the detail, and I don't have the statistics to say that there are none, but we know no mysterious ailments that would be blamed on the gas industry per se. I've had some very bizarre questions, specific questions have we seen, and the one that maybe was the most interesting was, and this was posed at one of our critical access hospital meetings in State College, and one of the other CEOs remarked on how they had seen an increase in STDs due to the gas industry. And I thought, I don't know how that would work out. I did real good in A&P, and that can't happen that way. Long story short, they were referring specifically to gonorrhea and chlamydia. And while we haven't seen that, evidently some areas had, but this is one of these deals that you have to understand the statistic that's given to you. They were seeing more, the raw number was higher. And those particular STDs are confined to a very distinct demographic in the population, the sub 25-year-old and some lifestyle things that may be going on. Long story short, if you had more people in that age bracket, you should probably be seeing more of that. What you have to look at is the percentage, and of course nobody had that. Not a very good study or interesting study, maybe, but no, we're not seeing anything bizarre, including that. One of the other things that was posed by one of the other critical access hospitals was an increase in uncollectible debt. Their point was, we have people coming in here from Texas, giving us a bad address, receiving care, flying the coop. How do you track them down to Texas? Well, you can't. We basically have not seen that. We do have more than our fair share of cash pay or private pay patients, and we do have issues with collections like everybody else does. We have not seen a change in that at all, let alone related to the gas industry. And if anything, when you look at the patients that we have had that would be related to the gas industry, they're insured for the most part. There are some out there without insurance, but they tend to be subcontractors of subcontractors. The folks from Southwest, Williams, Price Gregory, Cabot, DTE, they basically, their employees are all insured with medical insurance, which we like to see those patients, trust me. And have there been any negative impacts on the facility itself related to drilling? Absolutely not. The drilling is just approaching our facility. I think the closest pad is probably about 2.5 miles from Barnes-Kasson Hospital at this point, as the crow flies. I don't know how accurate that is. That's my own assessment. But that's what we're seeing. At the end of the day, we're in the business of taking care of people. And whether they're our regular patients, transients, short-term residents, long-term residents, lifelong residents, and whether they're employed by the gas industry, by Barnes-Kasson Hospital itself, anyone else, or whether they're not employed at all, and whether they're sick or injured or need whatever, we take care of them. That's what we do. We are BK, and that's what we do. So that's my story. Any questions?